This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Sports Card Nation, the hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews, it's your number one source. Sports Card Nation, the hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 345 of Sports Card Nation. First, want to thank my great sponsors, Upper Deck, Iron Sports Card, SCD, Hobby Hotline, and got a great guest. And his name is Brandon Edwards. He was doing a SGC bulk submission service like myself. He's also a card collector dealer. And, you know, when the news broke about the bulk subbing rates going away, we kind of, you know, and I knew of him, he knew of me, but when that happened, we kind of touched base and compared notes and that sort of thing. And I'm like, well, let's have you on and kind of do an on-air show as well. That's not going to be the only thing we talk about. We're going to chop up some hobby, how he got in the hobby, all that fun stuff. So he is today's guest. So without further ado, let's get to it. Happy to talk to the next gentleman on the Sports Card Nation guest line. We have some similarities when it comes to SGC grading. We're definitely going to get into that tonight, but we're going to talk about chop up some hobby, kind of where he got his start and that sort of thing. But we're joined by Brandon Edwards of Bobbles Ballcards. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. Glad you invited me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. For you, kind of where did the hobby all start for you? I know it's for a lot of us it's a similar story, but you know, anytime the first time on the show, I always kind of start with that question.
So it's your normal, like you said, kind of a similar story. A lot of people like to joke around with the gray beard and everything, and I just got used to it and play along. But I was born in 80. I got into the hobby right around 86. You know, I was big into sports. We as kids, and then, you know, back then we'd go outside. I lived in a neighborhood. We were, you know, after getting off the school bus, we were outside playing basketball, baseball, whatever, you know, whatever we could find. And just got into playing sports, which then led to watching. And, you know, back then we didn't have the internet and all that stuff, but we had the newspapers and the box scores and all of that good stuff. So friends in school taking the binders in the backpack, or you know, wearing the coats with the pockets on the inside and stuffing your top loaders as full as you could get them, and trading and selling, buying, and all that stuff. So kind of your normal, you've heard it probably a million times by now. Yeah, it all started when I was a wee little lad.
Now, did you have a period? For me, I was 7. I've told the story many times. I'm not gonna. But did you have a period where you kind of got out and came back, or are you one of the few that kind of stuck with it the whole way?
So I I've actually I this is my third iteration of building so around 96, I believe it was. You know, at that point I was 16. I was a junior in high school, I believe, because I graduated when I was 17. But Magic the Gathering became popular, and a lot of my friends that were trading sports cards and stuff with, they were starting to show interest in that. And of course, you didn't want to be the lone wolf, and it's kind of hard to trade when your friends aren't doing sports. So I actually had traded part of my collection then for Magic cards, so we could play. We weren't really collecting them; we were more building decks and playing in the cafeteria and stuff. And so at that point, that's kind of I didn't buy as much sports cards, but also obviously I graduated. I went to college right like 2 weeks after I graduated. I started business school. And then in 1999, I moved out to Indiana. I became a father in 2000. So obviously, you can do the math there. I was 20 years old, new father. So there was a lot of other important things on the table. But I did pick back up in around '02. And I remember distinctly because I was buying Topps Finest Basketball trying to get the redemption cards because they had those pre-rookie redemption for the drafts. And this one stung because I hit the number 2 pick. And you know how that '03 draft went. You had LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, you had a good crop of rookies there. And unfortunately, I thought I was set great. I couldn't lose at number 2. And Darko Milicic was drafted by the Detroit
I
Pistons.
don't mean to laugh, but as soon as you said number
Yeah.
2, I knew who the number 2. I think
Yep.
a lot of people know who the number 2 pick is, not for good reason.
Right.
Obviously, like you said, I mean, even the 3rd pick would have been better
Well,
than the 2 pick.
the thing is with the number 2, there was talks that Carmelo, because he was up in Syracuse, won the championship and everything, people thought that Cleveland might pass on LeBron and take Carmelo because of that, and then LeBron would go number 2. Well, obviously neither happened, and but I thought I couldn't lose. I was LeBron or Carmelo, and yeah. But so that was a very distinct point. And then I moved back here and I'm from Virginia. So I moved back to Virginia in 2012, and I had a bad relationship. And so the collection I had built obviously went by the wayside. And so I'm on my third iteration because when I skipped the part there. When I moved to Indiana, obviously, like I said, I had gotten into Magic cards. And so I left all that stuff behind. I was 19 when I moved halfway across the country. I was just learning life, learning how to become an adult. So this is my third go around, and I'll tell you, I wouldn't expect it to be where it is today. So, that's also a blessing, continue building on it. So
yeah, you're always drawn back in, right? There's
Yep.
the draw it has on you. You can, I always tell people you can always take a break, a pause, and come back when you're ready. Life happens, right? Like you said, you had a bad relationship that took your attention away from it. You had to get that straightened out. You can always come back whenever you feel like the time is right. Nothing wrong with that. You don't have to. You didn't apologize, but you don't have to feel bad or apologize for anything like that. Sometimes I'll get messages, Brandon, and someone will be like, "Hey, man, I'm feeling kind of burnt out. Any kind of advice?" And I'm like, "Yeah, take a break. Don't do anything." And I don't even. And sometimes they'll respond, "Well, how long of a break?" I'm like, "I can't answer. You have to answer that question. It could be 2 days and you miss it. It could be 2 weeks. It could be 2 months. Maybe it's even 2 years. That question you have to answer, but like take a break, get away from the cards, and when you feel like sometimes the old cliche, right? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. When you're away from it and you miss it, when you can come back. And so I always said nothing wrong with taking a break. I've done this for 40 years, and there's sometimes I'm like, I'm not doing anything card related this weekend, right? Whether it be content creation, looking at a card, picking up a card. I'm just kind of gonna take sort of a respite from it, if you will, retreat from it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It makes you,
Yeah.
sometimes if you don't do that, that's where you get in that space where like you sort of get burnt out, or you start resenting it, or hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not having fun. Or so there's no wrong answer. I've told even people, Brandon, like, hey, try something different. If some way you're collecting is not moving your meter, or it doesn't get you excited about it anymore, you're the CEO of your own hobby. You don't have to ask permission. You can do whatever, pivot in different, like you said. You had a stage where you did Magic the Gathering, and you came back to sport. Nothing wrong with that. That you're your own boss, so you can make those calls. And so there's nothing wrong with that. And better that than to like get so upset or burnt out of hobby and you never come back. Period, and you're gone. I don't like to hear. Go ahead.
I actually I've had this conversation with folks because, like I said, this is my third iteration of building a collection. And during the pandemic, things were so wild and it was so easy, like, especially if you were already in and, you had inventory or whatever, it was so easy to make money. Like, I had stuff sitting here that I never thought would be worth anything that people were paying $20, $30, $100 for. And it was like, take it, it's just sitting in a box, right? But I also realized that I was going in so many different directions that I allowed myself to get away from not necessarily who I am, but what I am most, like what is most enjoyable for me in the hobby. And so I didn't get out, but I kind of hit pause. I wasn't buying much, I was still keeping my finger on the pulse, but I was reevaluating, like, where was it that I was having the most fun? And I identified it pre-pandemic. Back in 2017, I started building a Nationals collection. And that's a completely different story of how to get in there. But I went back to that and I was doing that, and I was like, that is where I was having a lot of fun. And so I haven't quit, but I've adjusted my collection to get it back niched into where that fun was for me, instead of just being scatterbrained and thinking that I needed to buy everything, this and that. So, I think as a collector, and people always talk about a true collector and this and all of that. And it's always coined, even in your little banner there, it says the hobby. There's no true definition of what the hobby is, because the hobby is really what you as a person, you as a collector, you as a dealer enjoy. So, I think we all will evolve, will change, will take breaks, but I don't know that it'll ever go away, of being something that we enjoy.
I think most people, Brandon, let's see if you agree with this. I think most people have some sort of collecting gene, whether it's sports cards, maybe someone collects plates, someone collects watches, sneakers.
Mm-hmm.
I think inherently as humans, there's things we're drawn to where we like to accumulate more than one of something, whatever that something is for each of us, right? For me and you, it's obviously cards and cardboard and chrome. For someone else, and it could be more than one thing. It could be more than one thing. I'm not really a sneakerhead, but I have like a wall where I line up all my sneakers in like boxes, and I'm like, man, I have way too many. Like, that's ridiculous. So I wouldn't say I even collect sneakers. I haven't bought one in probably a pair in over a year, but I like having different options there, right? So I think we all have some sort of like collecting gene. Maybe sometimes we might not even realize it or not till after the fact. But I think we all have something along those lines.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you can kind of just see in my background, it's a little eclectic. I mean, there's like Lego sets up on the shelves. There's some VHS and stuff over here. What else is there? There's cards. There's some comics up on the shelf over there. So yeah, I mean, I know you were kind of interested in explaining the name. Where did I get the name Bobbles and Ballcards? And I can actually explain that now because it was a good
go
time.
ahead. Yep.
So when I was coming up with the channel, my channel name, it can be difficult sometimes. You want something unique, you want something fun, you want something that represents you. Well, in the term of collecting, me and my wife also collect bobbleheads. So my name is Brandon, hers is Becky, the B&B, and it worked to do the bobbles and ball cards. And she claims, most of the bobbleheads, that she loves them. Our first minor league game that we went to as a family happened to be a bobblehead night, and she just fell in love with it. So we have almost all of the Nationals bobbleheads that have ever been released. So that's where the name came from. And a lot of people wonder because, ball cards isn't always the common phrase. It's either sports cards or TCG or whatever. But it fit with our names being Brandon and Becky, and then collecting bobbleheads and sports cards.
I like it. It works. It's alliteration, right? There's a little English term for people who actually like school and paid attention in English class, right? Alliteration. And I love alliteration when you can incorporate it into whether it be a channel name, a business name, and it works, right? And it covers both things you collect, both aspects. Like you said, you and your wife's name both start with B. It just makes all it's a layup. You gotta, or it's a slam dunk. You gotta dunk it.
And for 5 years, we went with it, and it's kind of grown on everybody. And even if people don't know my name or hers, it's Mr. and Mrs. Bobbles. We actually, a friend of ours, like they seen how the channel was and how our Facebook group and they had heard all the stories and everything. They seen our bobblehead collection, and they actually got a custom, and it's really well done, a custom bobblehead of me and her, and it says Mr. and Mrs. Bobbles. So
that's really cool. I had a fan of the show. Speaking of Bobbles, now I'll just take a minute here. The fan of the show, I've told this story before, Brandon, but I'll give the Cliff Notes version. For a fan of the show, the show's been on now, going on its 7th year. About 3 or 4 years in, a gentleman emails me and says, "Hey, I need a headshot of you." Doesn't tell me why. He goes, "I know this is going to sound creepy. I need a headshot of you. And, trust me, I'm not a creeper." And so I'm like, I don't know, do I send one? Well, he said, "I'm a fan of the show. I need a headshot for you. I'm doing something. Believe me, it's not anything weird. I know this is a weird email, but just go with me on this." So I went ahead and sent him a headshot, and he said, "Hey, you'll send me your address. You're going to get something in about 4 weeks, about a month." And I'm like, okay. I didn't know, is he like a painter? Is he painting a picture? He didn't go into details. And about a month later, sure enough, this shows up with a nice note and letter, like, "I love the show. You keep it real. Yeah, a must listen in my rotation." And so he too had a custom bobblehead of me. So there's my Hobby Quick Hits, is another show where it's just me talking, no guests. So that's the hat. There's the Sports Card Nation logo on the shirt. And he even asked, and not in that first email, he's like, "Give me a picture of your favorite sneakers at the time." And so these are Nike Air Maxes, and it's even like to the sneakers.
Yep.
And there's my other logo. And when I got this, I'm like, holy crap, And I obviously I thanked them and that sort of thing. But it's crazy. I've gotten a bat. There's a bat behind me. I won't take. It's right near the lighted sign. A fan of the show. That was for my first anniversary of the show. They made a custom bat in Cooperstown, and again, they just asked for my address and said, "Hey, look for something in the mail." And so I'll get stuff like that. Now, obviously, Brandon, I don't do the show for those kind of reasons, but people like the show and appreciate. Like every time it happens, like I'm still humbled and shocked and surprised.
Yeah.
By it, and so it's cool.
Time to hear from one of our great sponsors, but Sports Card Nation will be right back after that.
Hobby Hotline is the hobby's only live interactive call-in show. Join some of your favorite hobby personalities every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, to discuss the hottest hobby topics. If you miss us live, catch us after the fact on all major podcast platforms. Follow us on socials at Hobby Hotline.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Let's go! You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast.
I'll tell you, you mentioned like I had watched YouTube and stuff, and you would see like people do, fan mail and all this. And I was like, man, people go to that effort, And when I started my channel, I never expected anything from it. Like, I just was on there, honestly, it started off, I was opening just packs and just kind of having fun recording it. They were awkward videos, trust me. But I will never forget, and I have every letter that's ever been sent to me, any card that's been given to me. I'll never forget the first time I got fan mail, if you want to call it that. It was a teenager, and his name was Connor. And I'll never, his Instagram was Collecting with Connor. And like that, I just never imagined it. And I never imagined that a young person would take the interest of like watching or listening or whatever of what I had to say. And so, that was really cool. And then obviously, 5 years in, there's been a lot of letters and appreciations, and all that stuff. It, like you said, humbling is. Yep. I'll tell you, the first time somebody see me at a show, I had to like go back later and find them and say and apologize because I was awkward. I didn't never expect anybody to come up to me, recognize me, and I didn't know how to react. So I went and apologized to them. Hey, sorry, I just wasn't expecting. But yeah,
no doubt. It's a great point you make, because I get the mail too, or the notes like, love the show. I love that you don't curse on the show. I can listen when the kids will also collect. And I got an accordion file. It's over there in my bookcase there, Brandon, with all those letters and notes. And I keep every one in the 7 years. And it's not to sound cocky. There's quite a bit of them, but I keep. My thing is, if someone took time out of their day to write that and then send it and buy a stamp and put a stamp and mail it to me, like, I'm going to keep it. And then, we all have those hobby days, right, where maybe we're feeling a little low or feeling a little down, or even with the show, maybe the show is getting into that little grind. I'll go into that accordion file, open it up, and pull some of those things out and read them. And just as a reminder, like, people care. People like the show. People enjoy what you do. And it's just another kind of a way to reset and kind of realize, like, I don't like even missing episodes. I think in 7 years I missed 5 episodes, whether it be sick or traveling or whatnot. And, and that's the thing. The rare occasion when I miss one, I'll get 5 or 6 or 7, like, everything okay? Because it's almost like that newspaper on your doorstep. People kind of expect it. And when it's not in there, like, podcast platform, if you will, they're like, is everything all right? And that tells you, right, that you mean something to them. So, like you said, when I started this almost 7 years ago, I had no expectation. I didn't know how many people would listen. I didn't know how it would receive. And it obviously didn't start out like that. It just built to the crescendo, and you built up that following. And it's, it never gets, I never get complacent with it. I'm still amazed even 7 years in. I'm not like, like someone once said, you're a celebrity. And I'm like, I'm not a celebrity, kid. I'm like, until I go, The only time I'll be a celebrity if I ever go to my like supermarket shopping and someone says, "Oh my God, it's John Newman." That's a celebrity. Brad Pitt's a celebrity. Maybe I'm a hobby known if I can go that far, but I'm not a celebrity. And even if I was, like, I don't really like. That's one of the biggest compliments someone will tell me is like when you tell stories, it's just you telling. It's not even like you tell bad one, like something like negative happened to you or something positive. Like you keep it real, and I appreciate that. It's not always W's all the time, right? It's real
definitely.
easy. Like, yeah, I bought a car for $10 and sold it for 100, and that guy that every story he hits a home run, right? I talk about the strikeouts or swings and misses, and people appreciate that. I think it's important to know for people to know, like, hey, you're not gonna bat 1,000. That's okay. That comes with territory.
Yep.
And the content I listen to, I appreciate the folks that are the same way. That, hey man, I made a mistake. Hey, I thought this, and then this happened, and that sort of thing. It means we're human. We don't know everything, and I've been in the hobby 40 years, Brandon, and I learn something every day. I don't know everything. I may be, sometimes when I'm on another show, they'll introduce me as like hobby expert John Newman. I always like kind of smile because I don't feel like I'm an expert. I'm experienced. I have a lot of experience, but I don't believe anyone's an expert. It's kind of what I say about golfers. I don't think anyone's really good at golf. I just think some tournaments they play really well and they win. I kind of think like that with hobbyists, right? So we're just more experienced. It doesn't mean we're expert. So I always kind of bristle at that, but I mean, they're being nice, and I appreciate that. But I learn something every day. And the minute I don't learn something every day, I'm just not paying attention that day. And so, I try to stay humble. I think I do more days than I don't, and I think it's a good place to be. And going international, I'm very approachable. Heck, my cell phone number's on most of my content. If anyone ever wants to call or text or ask a question, I try to be available. And, people were available to me when I was a young kid getting in the hobby and helped me. And I sort of try to pay that whole thing forward even now into my 50s. So that's just the way I was raised and brought up. And I'm not going to change now just because, a bunch of people listen to the podcast, which I appreciate immensely. I'm not, but it doesn't change who I am. There's no shtick. I might use funny sound bites or something like that, but it's always being myself. I appreciate it. I'm sure you're the same way. So I think it goes a long way. And
Yeah,
people
definitely.
appreciate that. Yeah, go ahead.
Just like you said, it's not always wins. One thing, I think most content creators have realized, if you're doing it and become, I don't want to say popular, but known around the space or whatever. We talked about all the people that are appreciative and everything, and it doesn't matter how real you are, it doesn't matter how honest you are. There's always going to be haters, and
Yep.
I realized that as well. You can be honest, true.
Well, listen, not to cut you off. Some people are just, and it's not fair, but we both know this, and people out there listening, I'm sure, will shake their. Some people will just look at you and make a judgment.
Oh,
You
yeah.
don't have to say nothing, do anything. They're going to look at the cover, so to speak, and judge the book. And they haven't read the book yet. And they're just going
Right.
to look at you. And there's nothing you can do. And I don't worry, this will sound harsh, but I don't worry about those kind of people because there's nothing I can do anyway. The verdict is in without a trial, right? They've already looked at you and decided, I don't like that guy, or I do like that.
I've always felt it takes way less effort to just be who you are as a person, living your life who you want to be, than it is to try to be something else to please other people. And if you make the decision to just be yourself, and I've always had this mindset, you're either going to like me or you don't. And that's not my decision to make. That's yours. And, your free will to make whatever decision you choose. And that's just how I've always been. And, you're going to have a handful of people that like you, and you're going to have a few people that don't like you. And that's just the balance of the world and just human nature. So I don't worry about it. I'm going to be who I am and just tell it like it is. So no
Yeah.
sense in sugarcoating it.
Yeah, well said, and that's a good way to be, right? My grandfather said I was raised by my grandparents, Brandon, and my grandfather told me something when I was real young, 5, 6, 7 years old. He said, Johnny, if you always tell the truth, you don't have to remember the lie.
Yep.
And at the time, I'm a little kid. I got it, but I didn't get it as much as when I got older, right? And even that applies to content as far as when I turn the mic on, whether I'm interviewing or talking to somebody, or I'm just doing a show and it's just me, and I just tell the truth and be honest, I don't have to remember the story, because the story is comes from in here, and it's what's real, And so maybe when I get older and dementia maybe sets in, I might not remember. But if you're honest and sincere, you don't have to remember what you say, because you said it because you really feel that way. And it's not an act. You're not playing a role in a script. And that's the way I've always been. And, it was kind of instilled at me at a very young age. And so I've always tried to be like that. And like you said, if someone appreciates that and says, hey, I like Newman because he kind of, I've had people tell me some of it, we talk about fan mail or feedback. I've had people tell me, like, John, I don't agree with this one point you were making about this topic, but I still love you because, like, that's how you feel. That's your true opinion. Like, we may not agree on everything and some things not, but I know, like, you're not just saying it to get clicks or just to grab attention or just play yin to someone's yang. You're just being yourself and giving your true opinion. And sometimes I agree with you, sometimes I don't, but I still like you. Even when I don't agree with you, I like you because I just know you're keeping it real, even though we might get off at a different exit on that particular topic or opinion. And that's one of the best compliments. When someone can say, hey, I don't agree with you, but I still respect you and your opinion. That's one of the biggest compliments you get.
That's a big issue within the hobby, especially in content space, because it's almost like this need for everybody to be right and their way to be the right way. But the thing that I think people forget is we're literally doing something that is supposed to be a hobby, and we're supposed to be able to do it our way. And on top of that, most people are doing it within sports, which we all don't root for the same team. We all don't have the same favorite players. We all don't like the same brand or wear the same shoes or, whatever. We all do things differently. So why can't it be that I still remember, and I know we're going to get into SG, but I still remember when I started doing SG and the hounding and the trolls and you're wasting your money, you're wasting your time, blah, 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 blah. And it was like, this is what I like. This is what's working for me. This is what I'm doing. Why does it matter to you? Like that was the whole thing. It was like, if it's working for me and this is what I enjoy and what I'm doing, why do you care? Like, so, and that happens a lot, not just within grading, but,
Well, that happens. Listen, it's a symptom of society too. It happens in politics. It happens in any.
I try to stay out of that. I'm not a political
we won't go there. But I'm saying it's not even just relegated to the hobby. It's really almost in anything. Everyone wants to be right, and everyone else is wrong if you don't agree with them. And it doesn't have to be like that, like you just said, Brent. So, all right, good catching up with Brandon's Bobbles Ballcards. We're going to really get into the weeds with SGC on part 2, which is next week. And again, we have a lot of stuff in common. And we talk about the decision to eliminate the bulk rate and maybe what the future is for SGC. But, all right, that's going to wrap up. We're going to hear our Hobbies and People announcer of the week and some closing thoughts, and then could have put a bow tie on this week's episode. But more with Brandon again next week, and we get a little more into the weeds about SGC.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Time for our Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week.
This is Mike, this baseball card life, and remember, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.